the dual face of a crime committed against humanity. That's quite a very thought-provoking subject where they have visualized something, the crime against humanity, into two separate compartments, but which are very interconnected. There is disappearances and mass graves. Now, among all the crimes against humanity, I think the enforced disappearance could be taken as a very serious offense because it brings a lot of despair and sorrow to the family members, especially the mothers, because there's no finality in the loss of a person in the family, especially the mothers. They are made to sort of go through all that agony until their lifetime. If it was a murder or some execution, they can console themselves that the person has dead, the son is or the daughter is dead. But here, of course, the mothers and the next of kin are not given that consolation because until the end of their lifetimes, they are made to suffer. So that is a very serious thing about enforced disappearances. And when you take that, you can say it's crime against humanity. But when it is directed against a particular community or ethnicity or some religion, some particular group, then it takes the form of genocide. According to the conventions and the international law, the genocide is defined as a crime which is directed against a particular ethnic group or community. So here, the Tamil community has suffered during the war and after the war. Now we can take so many instances from Chemmani to Vandaramullai abduction, where about 121 persons had been enforced disappeared, and the bones were found in a mass grave. And thereafter, the Satosa mass grave in Mana, followed by the Kokutoduai Mullaithivu mass grave. And now, the Chemmani mass grave also has been rekindled because very recently the municipal council, when they wanted to build some construction, when they dug, they found number of skeletons, and it was reported to the magistrate, and there is a new investigation which is about to start. Already the dates have been fixed. Only thing, the funds have not come from the government, have been not been allocated by the government. So here we see all these disappearances and the mass graves have not been properly handled by the state. In that, there is no political will, the officials do not cooperate, the police do not make the correct investigation. Although the magistrate is entrusted with the task of supervising the investigation or the exhumation of the skeletons, he is confronted with the problem of the very mundane things, that is the allocation of finances, allocation of personnel. Now, when you handle a mass grave, it cannot be, just dug up and the skeletons be brought to the fore. There has to be anthropological experts, forensic experts, the JMOs, and all those divisions will have to work in coordination. So this is a new concept, new thing in our country. Although this has been very properly done in countries like Argentina, Chile, and various other countries, where in some, say, military junta operation or the government, lot of people had been killed and they have been buried. Then what happens is, the next government comes, they carry out a very credible investigation, and the people affected also take part in that, and they have been represented. There have been mass graves open to the public. Anybody could visit without disturbing the process. However, in our country, when exhumation is done, public is prevented from visiting the place. The media is prevented. There is an order by the magistrate that media cannot come. So there are so many constraints. So these are the ones that trouble our effort to go into these crimes. For example, in the Satosa mass grave, the Attorney General got involved. The Attorney General has no business to get involved in a exhumation because it is not a death inquest. If there's a death inquest, the Attorney General representative could come and represent the state. But here it's only a exhumation followed by an investigation where the Attorney General has no role to play. When he gets into the situation, he plays a very negative role. This happened in the Satosa mass graves where the Attorney General's representative was brought in by interested parties, and thereafter the investigation or the exhumation got stalled. So the government gets involved and obstructs the process through various means. And one of them is this Attorney General, and the other one is they could strangle the whole process by withholding the funds. Now, in the midst of a excavation, all of a sudden, the experts are told there are no funds, so you have to stop the excavation. Now, it brings a very serious sort of block to the entire process. Now, in other countries where this had been, excavations had been done, especially Rwanda and Chile, the funds were granted to the governments by various international organizations, and the funds were channeled through the government. But here the government is not willing to get foreign funds, and the government's funds are very limited, and that also they filter it with the intention to scuttle the whole exercise. So this is our experience while handling these disappearances and mass graves. Now, I stated earlier that there's a close connection between disappearance and mass graves. When the family members are going in search of their loved ones, they make complaints to each and every organization, government institution. And finally, they are unable to find anything, no helpful sort of assistance from any quarter. So that's where whenever there is a mass grave spotted within their sort of location or within the area, they are also apprehensive whether their loved ones their bones could be within that mass grave. Although it's difficult for them to stomach, they don't want to believe that their son or daughter is dead. However, they have to accept the fact that there may be a possibility. So that is how we obtained affidavits from the parents of disappeared. And with that, we enter the legal process. And thereafter, the families are also very keenly observing the process. But however, when the whole thing is scuttled that way, they are very disappointed and they lose faith in the entire process, especially the legal process. They may not know about the formalities, what goes behind it, how these things happen. So when we go back to them again, they say, what is the point? We are very much disappointed. So we have to explain the whole process again, and thankfully, they are willing to cooperate with us. Now, in the Satosa mass grave, there were about 60 skeletons which were discovered, and their bones have been taken and samples taken. In the Mullaitivu mass grave, there are about 42 skeletons believed to be of the LTT cadres. However, to ascertain to which period it belonged to, the samples have to be sent to the correct laboratories abroad, maybe in Europe or in USA. And for that, the funding is of essence. And the funding is usually withheld by the government so that there is no result coming through it. And in Chemmani, it is suspected that there are 600 bodies which had been buried. We have got information from the people of the area who are still living in that location surrounding the mass graves, and there is a list of more than 600 persons who had been taken custody by the army and who are suspected to be executed and buried in Chemmani mass grave. So there is a very enormous responsibility on the state agencies, the legal authorities, and of course the government authorities, and as the lawyers. It's an uphill task, but we are trying our best effort to get useful result from such excavations. The most important thing which lacks is the political will. Whichever the government comes, under Chandrika Bandaranaike, under the successors, Ranil Wickremesinghe, everybody, no government is willing to support this effort 100%. And they have their institutions, even the OMP, which only pays a lip service, which doesn't have a authority to conduct investigations into disappearances and mass graves. So this is the situation that we are facing at the moment. And as our friend Namal Rajapaksa said, Sri Lanka, I think, is number one or number two state famous for disappearance. And I think that dubious honor is still continuing. That's all. Thank you.
විශේෂයෙන්ම මනුෂ්‍යත්වයට එරෙහි ක්‍රියාවන් හැටියට තමයි මේ දෙයාකාරී ක්‍රියාකාරීත්වය අපි සලකන්නට ඕනේ. මොකද දැන් යම් කෙනෙක් අතුරුදහන් වුණාට පස්සේ ඒ වින්දිත පවුලේ සමාජිකයින්ට දෙමව්පියන් වෙන්න පුළුවන්, සහෝදර සහෝදරියන් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ අය ජීවත් වෙන තාක්කල් සදාකාලීනවම ඉතාමත්ම දුක්ඛිත තත්යකට තමයි පත් වෙලා තිබෙන්නේ. දැන් අපි දන්නවා මේ අතුරුදහන් වීම සහ ඒ වගේම සාමූහික මිනිවල්වල් කියන කාරණේ ගත්තොත් එහෙම යම්කිසි කණ්ඩායමකට එය ජනවාර්ගික කණ්ඩායමක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්, නැත්නම් ආගමික කණ්ඩායමක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. එවැනි අවස්ථාවකදී අපි යොදන වචනේ තමයි සමූල ඝාතනයට ලක්වීම කියන කාරණේ. ඉතින් මේ කරුණු ගැන සලකා බලනකොට අපි දන්නවා විශේෂයෙන්ම දෙමළ ප්‍රදේශ ගැන කතා කරනකොට චෙම්මනි කියන ඒ ප්‍රදේශයේ ඒ වගේම වන්දාරමුල්ල කියන මඩකලපුවේ ප්‍රදේශයේ අපි ඓතිහාසිකව දකිනවා විවිධ අවස්ථාවල් වලදී ඇටසැකිලි හමු වෙලා තිබෙනවා. ඒ වගේම මෑත ඉතිහාසයේ මන්නාරම සතුස භූමිය තුල සහ කොක්කුතොඩුවයි කියන ඒ ප්‍රදේශයට අදාළ වත් ඒ වගේම නගර සභාව යම් ඉදිකිරීම් කටයුත්තක් කරන්න ආරම්භ කරපු අවස්ථාවේදී එහිදීත් මෙවැනි ඇටසැකිලි දකින්නට ලැබුණා. ඒ වගේම මේ සාමූහික මිනිස් කියන්නේ මිනි වලවල් කියන කාරණේ ගත්තාම මේ කාරණය මේ ඉදිරියට ගෙනියන්න නම් ඒ කියන්නේ විවිධ ආයතනවල සහයෝගය අවශ්‍ය වෙනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ ඒකාබද්ධ ක්‍රියාකාරීත්වයක් අවශ්‍ය වෙනවා. අපි හිතමු JMO වෙන්න පුළුවන්, එහෙම නැත්නම් පොලිසිය වෙන්න පුළුවන්, එහෙම නැත්නම් ඒ පිළිබඳව කරුණු කාරණා සොයන කණ්ඩායම වෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඉතින් මේ කාරණාවලදී ලංකාවේ මේ ආයතන නැත්නම් මේ යාන්ත්‍රණය කිසිසේත්ම අංග සම්පූර්ණ සහයෝගයක් ලැබලා දීලා නැහැ. නමුත් අපි වෙනත් රටවල් ගත්තොත් එහෙම ආජන්ටිනාව නැත්නම් චිලි වගේ රටවල් ගත්තොත් එහෙම එක හමුදා ආණ්ඩුවක් යටතේ නැත්නම් වෙනත් ක්‍රූර ආණ්ඩුවක් යටතේ මේ වගේ දේවල් සිද්ධ වුණාට පස්සේ නැවත අලුත් ආණ්ඩුවක් බලයට පත් වුණාට පස්සේ ඒ ආණ්ඩුව මේ කාරණේ පිළිබඳව ඉතාමත්ම සැලකිල්ලෙන් කටයුතු කරනවා. ඒ කටයුතු කිරීම නිසාම ඒ පවුලේ උදවියට මහජනතාවට යම් විශ්වාසයක් ඇති වෙන විදිහට තමයි එහි කටයුතු කරන්නේ. විශේෂයෙන්ම මෙවැනි අවස්ථාවකදී මහජනතාවටත් මාධ්‍යයටත් ඒකට සම්බන්ධ වෙන්න ඉඩකඩ සලසලා තිබෙනවා. නමුත් අපේ රටේ ඇවිල්ලා ඒ සියල්ලම වළක්වන තත්ත්වයක් තමයි තිබෙන්නේ. මහේස්ත්‍රාත්වරයා පවා මාධ්‍ය ආයුතු නැහැ, මහජනතාව ආයුතු නැහැ කියලා තමයි පටන් ගන්න. විශේෂයෙන්ම මෑත ඉතිහාසයේ අපි දැකපු තවත් දෙයක් තමයි මේ නීතිපතිවරයාත් මේකට මැදිහත් වෙන තත්ත්වයක් අපි දකිනවා. ඇත්තටම නීතිපතිවරයාට කිසිම අවශ්‍යතාවයක් නැහැ මේ කටයුත්තදී සහභාගී වෙන්න. නමුත් නීතිපතිවරයාගේ පැමිණීම නිසා ඇත්තටම ඒ විශ්වාසය කඩ වෙන තත්ත්වයක් තමයි එතන පළ වෙන්නේ. මොකද මෙතන මේ ඝාතනයක් පිළිබඳව චෝදනා ඉදිරිපත් කරන්න නෙමෙයි මෙතන තියෙන්නේ. මෙතන තියෙන්නේ ඊට වඩා ආත්පසින් වෙනස් තත්ත්වයක්. ඒ වගේම ආණ්ඩුව තවත් පැත්තකින් කරුණු ඉදිරිපත් කරනවා අපට අවශ්‍ය කරන අරමුදල් නැහැ කියලා. ඒ වගේම විදේශ රටක් මේ අරමුදල අවශ්‍ය අරමුදල ලබා දෙන්න සූදානම් වුණාම නෑ අපි මේ විදේශ අරමුදල් අපි ගන්නෙ නෑ මේ වගේ මේක දේශීය වශයෙන් කළ යුතු වැඩක් කියලා හැම රජයක්ම බලයට පත් වෙච්ච රජයක්ම තර්ක කරනවා. නමුත් විදේශ රටවල් වල චිලි වෙන්න පුළුවන්, රුවන්ඩා වෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ රටවල් වල එහෙම නෙවෙයි. විදේශ යම්කිසි ආධාර මුල්‍යම ආධාර ලැබෙනවා නම් ඒ ආණ්ඩුව හරහා ඒ කටයුතු කරන්න ඒ රජයන් සහයෝගය ලබා දීලා තිබෙනවා. නමුත් ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ තත්ත්වය ඒකට හාත්පසින්ම වෙනස් ආකාරයකින් තමයි පවතින්නේ. ඉතින් ඒ නිසා මේ අතුරුදහන් වීම සහ සාමූහික මිනිවලවල් කියන කාරණය දිගින් දිගටම අපේ ඉතිහාසයේ තවමත් කිසිම විසඳුමක් ලබා ගන්නට බැරි තත්ත්වයකට පත් වෙලා තිබෙනවා. ඒ විතරක් නෙමෙයි මහජනතාවට මේ ආණ්ඩුවේ ක්‍රියාකාරීත්වය පිළිබඳව කිසිම විශ්වාසයක් තියන්න පුළුවන් කමක් නැහැ. දැන් අපි හිතමු සතොස සමූහ මිනිවලවල් පිළිබඳ ප්‍රශ්නයේදී මේ ඇටසැකිලි 60කට ආසන්න ඇටසැකිලි ප්‍රමාණයක් සොයාගෙන තිබෙනවා. ඒ වගේම මුල්ලේතීව ඒ සමූල ඝාතනය සිද්ධ වෙච්ච ඒ මිනිවලවල් ඔස්සේ 42ක් පමණ ඒ කියන්නේ ඇටසැකිලි සොයාගෙන තිබෙනවා. ඉතින් ඒ අය සමහර විට මුල්ලේතීව ඇටසැකිලි වලට අයත් අය LTT එකේ හිටපු කාඩරවරු වෙන්නටත් පුළුවනි. දැන් මේ කරුණු පිළිබඳව පරීක්ෂණ පවත්වන්නට නම් ඇත්තටම අපේ රටේ ඒ සඳහා අවශ්‍ය කරන පහසුකම් නැහැ. ඒ නිසා එක්කෝ එක්සත් ජනපදයේ නැත්නම් එංගලන්තයේ වැනි රටවල් වලට ඒ අවශ්‍ය කරන කරුණු කාරණා ඉදිරිපත් කිරීමෙන් ඒ තමයි මේක කරන්න පුළුවන් වෙන්නේ. ඉතින් අපි චෙම්මනි කියන ඒ සමූල ඝාතනය වෙච්ච ඒ මිනිවල ගත්තොත් එහෙම සාමාන්‍ය මහජනතාවගේ තොරතුරු අනුව 600කට ආසන්න ප්‍රමාණයක් හමුදාව විසින් අත්අඩංගුවට අරගෙන අතුරුදහන් කරලා ඊට පස්සේ සමූහ මිනිවල වල ඝාතනය කරලා තමයි තිබෙන්නේ. ඉතින් ඒ නිසා මෙවැනි කාරණයකදී පාර්ශ්ව කීපයකින් සහයෝගයක් අවශ්‍ය වෙනවා. කියන්නේ ආණ්ඩුවේ සහයෝගය අවශ්‍ය වෙනවා, නීතිඥයන්ගේ සහයෝගය අවශ්‍ය වෙනවා, ඒ අදාළ විද්‍යාඥයන්ගේ සහයෝගය අවශ්‍ය වෙනවා, මුල්‍යම සහයෝගය අවශ්‍ය වෙනවා. ඊළඟට මෙතන තියෙන ප්‍රධානම කාරණය තමයි මේ දේශපාලන අධිෂ්ඨානය. දැන් ලංකාව ගත්තාම එවැනි දේශපාලන අධිෂ්ඨානයක් සහිත කිසිම රාජ්‍ය නායකයෙක් ඉදිරිපත් වෙලා නැහැ. චන්ද්‍රිකා මැතිණිය වෙන්න පුළුවන්, රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ වෙන්න පුළුවන්, නැත්නම් වෙනත් කෙනෙක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. අවංකව මේ කාරණයට මැදිහත් වුණු බවක් අපට දකින්නට ලැබෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඉතින් ඒ නිසා නිමාවක් නොමැතිව මේ ක්‍රියාකාරීත්වය දිගින් දිගටම අපේ සමාජය තුළ පවතිනවා. නාමල් රාජපක්ෂ මහත්මයා කිව්වා වගේම මම හිතන්නේ මේ අතුරුදහන් කිරීම සහ සමූල ඝාතනය පිළිබඳව අංක 1 නැත්නම් අංක 2ට අපේ රට පත් වෙලා තියෙනවා. வரலாற்று ரீதியாக இது ஒரு பாரிய பிரச்சனையை இலங்கையில் ஏற்படுத்தி இருக்கின்றது. ஏனெனில் இது ஒரு புறம் குற்றவியல் குற்றமாக கருதப்படுகின்றது. அதே நேரத்தில் மனித சமுதாயத்திற்கு, அதாவது மானுடத்திற்கு எதிரான ஒரு செயற்பாடாகத்தான் இது தொடர்ந்து இடம்பெறுகிறது. ஆரம்பத்தில் காணாமற் போதல் இங்கு இடம்பெறுகிறது. பின்னர் அது படுகொலைகளாக மாற்றமடைகின்றன. ஆகவே இந்த விஷயங்கள் தொடர்பாக அந்த பாதிக்கப்பட்ட குடும்பங்களினுடைய தாய்மாராக இருக்கலாம், சகோதரிகளாக இருக்கலாம், அல்லது சகோதரர்களாக இருக்கலாம், அவர்கள் உயிர் வாழும் வரையும் இந்த துயரினால் பாதிக்கப்பட்டவர்களாகத்தான் தொடர்ச்சியாக இருக்க வேண்டிய ஒரு நிலைமை இருக்கிறது. அவர்களுடைய வாழ்க்கையில் ஒரு நாளும் இந்த விஷயம் தொடர்பாக எதுவிதமான விடிவும் இல்லாத ஒரு சூழ்நிலை இருக்கிறது. இப்போ எங்களுடைய நாட்டை பொறுத்தவரையில் நாங்கள் செம்மணி புதைகள் குழிகள் சம்பந்தமாக எடுத்தாலும் அங்கு எலும்புக்கூடுகள் கண்டுபிடிக்கப்பட்டன. அதே போல மன்னாரிலே சதச நிலத்திலே ஒரு கட்டிடம் கட்டுவதற்கான அந்த கட்டுமான வேலைகள் ஆரம்பிக்கப்பட்ட போதும் இந்த புதைகுழிகளில் இருந்து எலும்புகள் கண்டுபிடிக்கப்பட்டன. இந்த விசாரணைகளை மேற்கொண்ட போது இந்த விசாரணைகளை உரிய வகையிலே முன்னெடுத்து செல்ல வேண்டுமானால் பல்வேறு தரப்பினருடைய உதவியும் ஒத்தாசையும் ஒத்துழைப்பும் தேவைப்படுகின்றது. ஆனால் இந்த ஒத்தாசை ஒத்துழைப்பு என்பன எங்களுடைய நாட்டை பொறுத்தவரையில் பூரணமாகவோ அல்லது பகுதியாகவோ கிடைப்பதில்லை. ஒரு புறம் ஜேஎம்ஓ போன்ற வைத்தியர்களுடைய ஒத்துழைப்பு தேவை, அதே போல போலீசாருடைய ஒத்துழைப்பு தேவை, சாட்சிகளுடைய ஒத்துழைப்பு தேவை. இவை அனைத்தையும் ஒருங்கிணைத்து செயற்பட வேண்டி இருக்கிறது. இன்னும் ஒரு விடயம் என்னவென்றால், இலங்கையை பொறுத்தவரையில் சில நீதவான்களினுடைய தீர்ப்பிற்கு அமைய பொதுமக்களோ அல்லது ஊடகங்களோ இது விடயமாக அங்கு பிரசன்னமாவதற்கு இடமளிக்கப்படுவதில்லை. அது மாத்திரமல்லாமல் அண்மை காலத்தில் எங்களுடைய சட்டமா அதிபரும் இந்த விடயத்தில் தன்னுடைய மூக்கை நுழைக்கின்ற ஒரு தன்மையை நாங்கள் பார்க்கக்கூடியதாக இருக்கிறது. சட்டமா அதிபர் அவருடைய பிரசன்னம் உண்மையிலேயே இப்படியான விசாரணைகளை ஒரு பாதகமான திசையை நோக்கித்தான் எடுத்துச் செல்வதற்கு காரணமாக அமைகின்றன. அடுத்த விடயம், இலங்கையினுடைய அரசாங்கத்தை பொறுத்தவரையில் நிதி இல்லை, ஒதுக்கீடுகள் இல்லை என்ற விடயத்தை தான் அடிக்கடி கூறி வருகின்றார்கள். ஆனால் ருவாண்டா, சிலி போன்ற நாடுகளிலும் இப்படியான இராணுவ ஆட்சிகளின் போது அல்லது கொடூரமான ஆட்சிகளின் போது புதைகுழிகளில் புதைக்கப்பட்டிருக்கின்றார்கள் சாதாரண மக்கள், அல்லது அவர்கள் சந்தேகப்படுகின்றவர்கள், அல்லது காணாமற் போக செய்யப்பட்டிருக்கின்றார்கள். இப்படியான சந்தர்ப்பங்களில் இன்னும் ஒரு அரசாங்கம் பதவிக்கு வந்த பிறகு அவர்கள் மக்களுடைய ஒத்துழைப்போடு இதை முன்னெடுத்து செல்லக்கூடியதாக இருக்கிறது. போதிய அளவு நிதி அவர்களிடம் இல்லாவிட்டாலும் வெளிநாடுகளில் இருந்து அந்த நிதியை பெறக்கூடிய சாத்தியக்கூறு இருக்கின்றது. அந்த அரசாங்கங்களும் அதற்கு ஒத்துழைப்பு வழங்கி இருக்கின்றன. ஆனால் இலங்கையை பொறுத்தவரையில் நாங்கள் வெளிநாட்டு நிதியை இந்த விஷயத்தில் பங்கு எடுக்க மாட்டோம், நாங்கள் சுயாதீனமாக உள்நாட்டிலேயே விசாரணைகளை மேற்கொள்வோம் என்று கூறி தட்டி கழிக்கின்ற ஒரு போக்குத்தான் இருக்கின்றது. இதனால் அந்த பாதிக்கப்பட்ட மக்களை பொறுத்தவரையில் இந்த அரசாங்கங்கள் மீது அல்லது அரசாங்க இயந்திரம் மீது எதுவிதமான நம்பிக்கையும் இல்லாத ஒரு சூழ்நிலை இருக்கின்றது. இப்படியான சந்தர்ப்பங்களில் கூடுதலாக இந்த சத்திய கடதாசிகள் மூலம் அந்த நிகழ்வு இடம்பெற்ற போது அறிந்தவர்களுடைய சத்திய கடதாசிகளை வைத்து கொண்டுதான் இந்த விடயங்களை முன்னெடுத்து செல்ல வேண்டி இருக்கிறது. இப்போ இலங்கையை பொறுத்தவரையில் அண்மையில் சதோச அந்த காணியில் 60 எலும்புக்கூடுகள் கண்டுபிடிக்கப்பட்டன. முல்லைத்தீவிலே 42 எலும்புக்கூடுகள் கண்டுபிடிக்கப்பட்டன. முல்லைத்தீவின் எலும்புக்கூடுகள் அநேகமாக விடுதலை புலிகளின் போராளிகளாக இருக்கலாம் என்று நம்பப்படுகின்றது. இப்படியான சந்தர்ப்பங்களில் இந்த புதைகுழிகளில் இருந்து எலும்புகள் கண்டுபிடிக்கப்பட்ட பின்பு அவை இலங்கையிலே ரசாயன கூடங்களிலே பரிசோதிப்பதற்கான வாய்ப்பு வசதிகள் இல்லை. அது ஒன்றில் அமெரிக்காவிற்கோ அல்லது இங்கிலாந்திற்கோ அனுப்பி தான் இந்த விஷயத்தை முன்னெடுத்து செல்ல முடியும். ஆகவே அதற்கு போதிய அரச அனுகூலங்களோ அல்லது நிதி வசதிகளோ இல்லாமல் இவற்றை முன்னெடுத்து செல்ல முடியாத ஒரு சூழ்நிலை தான் இருக்கின்றது. இப்போ செம்மணியை பொறுத்தவரையில் கிட்டத்தட்ட 600 பேருடைய எலும்புக்கூடுகள் அங்கு கண்டுபிடிக்கப்பட்டுள்ளன. எனவே பொதுமக்களுடைய சாட்சிகளின்படி இராணுவத்தினால் கைது செய்யப்பட்டு பின்னர் காணாமல் ஆக்கப்பட்டு பின்னர் புதைகுழிகளாகத்தான் இந்த எலும்புக்கூடுகளாக நாங்கள் காணக்கூடியதாக இருக்கிறது. ஏற்கனவே குறிப்பிட்டது போல இப்படியான ஒரு செயற்பாட்டை முன்னெடுத்து செல்வதாக இருந்தால் அரசாங்கத்தினுடைய இயந்திரங்கள், சட்டத்தரணிகள் ஆகிய அனைவருடைய ஒத்துழைப்பும் தேவை. அது மாத்திரமே இல்லாமல் ஒரு அரசியல் திடுசங்கற்பம் தேவை. இலங்கை பொறுத்தவரையில் அரசாங்கம் வெறுமனே பேச்சளவில் தான் செயற்படுகின்றதை ஒழிய நடைமுறையில் செயற்படுவதாக காண முடியாது.